Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates. I'm your host. Today, my guest is a very special guest. I have Greg Kronz on. Greg Kronz is the rector at St. Luke's. He's a very special guy. I've had the pleasure of knowing Greg now for a few years. Never really having a chance to sit down and really speak to him on a one-on-one basis. But you, the viewer, you get a chance to, experience Greg at the same time that I do. This is going to be a wonderful conversation for me, not only because of who Greg is, but the information he carries. He's one of the more spiritual persons that I've ever met. The last time I've had the pleasure of hearing Greg speak was at the Martin Luther King celebration this past year. And I tell you what, if you are a very spiritual person, regardless of what your religion or belief system is, if you get a chance to stop by St. Luke's and listen to Greg, he will always have something beneficial to say that I'm more than certain that you'll walk away appreciating and knowing that you've learned something that you didn't know before. Greg.
Earl, pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to see you.
Just start with a brief history of who Greg Kronz is.
Well, I was born in Pittsburgh and grew up in Pittsburgh. Middle-class family. My dad went to 10 years night school at Carnegie Tech. Now it's Carnegie Mellon. And we moved out to the suburbs at that point. And I was kind of a geeky, smart soprano. Not a good way to enter your middle school years, when you make a move. And actually at that time, I went on a search in terms of my relationship with the Lord, because I was raised in a denomination where I heard a lot of law but not a lot of grace, is the best way I'd put it now. And the Lord used the vehicle of Young Life to draw me to himself. And I've been walking with him intently since I was 15 years old. And that really probably set the course for my life, to be honest with you, because because when I started college with a chemical engineering major, and changed halfway through because I was doing youth work and I was so led to do ministry in some way, shape, or form that I changed my major to a double major in religious studies and philosophy at Pitt, not exactly a Christian bastion of education. And it was a great experience. Met my wife during that time, and Meredith and I have been married. It'll be 32 years next month. And we have 3 kids. We moved from Pittsburgh after seminary and working there for a couple of years. We moved to San Antonio for 5 years, and I've been here it'll be 19 years next month.
Well, that's pretty special. Now, of course, when you started, as far as your family background, the course of your faith was in Catholicism.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
And now Episcopal Church is what you're the rector of right now.
Right, correct.
How important was that for you to make that change, or was it just the venue or the path that you saw that you should go on?
Great question. Part of it was, as I said before, when I grew up in the Catholic Church, I heard a lot about Catholicism. I heard a lot about rules and the way the church is. And someone challenged me when I was about 13 years old. Greg, you don't know the Bible. You know a lot of rules. You know a lot about being a good person, but you don't know the Bible. And you need to start reading the Bible. And so it was actually starting to read the Bible daily at around the age of 13 for the next 2 years in reading the Bible. It changed my life. I understood who Jesus was, why Jesus came, and that he wants a personal relationship with us. It's not about law. It's not about, this guy and this guy who's unknowable. It's about a personal relationship. And it was giving my life to him and allowing him to set the course for my life, as opposed to simply trying to do it my way, which is following rules, or to even do it the world's way, which, as we talked about earlier, is all over the place today. But through the Word of God and through Jesus Christ and by the power of the Holy Spirit, just seeking to live for him in all that I do.
Well Greg, for me, I'm looking more towards the vehicle in which you want to be aspired by. For you, of course, you came through your family in Catholicism.
Right.
You moved to Episcopal, like you said. And you said your movement. How important is that for everyone else to understand, their path that they need to take?
Well, for me, it's not so much about denomination. It's about Jesus Christ and the Scriptures, and whatever will enhance your walk with him. And I do believe you need to be connected to a community. You need to be connected to a place where you're going to grow in the knowledge and love of the Lord, where the Scriptures are preached and taught. and where you're going to find community with other people, because Jesus never intended for us to be isolated. And there was a joke that went around when I was younger, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. And so, God never designed for us to be alone. And so we need to be connected to a community. If you look at the scriptures, Jesus immediately gathered people around himself, and spiritual gifts are about sharing them in community. We're supposed to be mission-minded, mission-oriented, so we reach out. Together we encourage each other. And so it's about our walk with the Lord and living it out with each other in community, the witness of our love for each other, and touching lives through service. I mean, and I don't care what denomination you're in, as long as you find a place that's going to help you do that.
Well, I think one of the greatest ways of finding out if a leader is good is how well his students reach out to others. And one of your, so to speak, students, Mr. Michael Zanacco, is one of my greatest mentors. And I tell you what, it says a lot, not only for you, but, for me, we try to meet once a week whenever he's not, doing his work as far as traveling around, spreading the word and his knowledge. And it's amazing how the knowledge that someone has that really bases themselves in Jesus Christ, in being a Christian, how you can soak up so much that you can use throughout your days.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important thing when you talk about spirituality, is someone who not is going to just, like you said, just give you the rules and where to stand, but also, can relate it to life, real life situations.
Right.
And for me, Mike is just an unbelievable mentor that I've had in my life for quite some time, but not in the way that it's become right now. And so much he speaks about you and what the church is doing. And I think it's an amazing thing. You've become, such a guiding light for so many people on the island. Forget about your church, but in other churches. Is that something that you set forward to do when you decided to be a pastor or now a rector of a church?
Yeah, I don't believe that that God calls us. I mean, if you look at the life of Jesus, he traveled and he touched lives wherever he went. And, church walls shouldn't confine us. Really what we should be doing is touching lives wherever we go. For example, this. I'm leaving for Tanzania at 3 a.m. Well, we have 4 different churches involved in that trip. Not just St. Luke's, but other churches that are sending people to be a part of this trip, which I'm thrilled with. I mean, and I don't feel that it's all about St. Luke's. It's about the Lord. And however the Lord moves and connecting people to each other, the body of Christ, in order to do ministry. And it's just a great blessing. We were talking earlier also about Ben Williams, who I just love. Ben and I just have a great relationship. And Ben is sending Sandy Bass, who's the director of the Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church Achievement School, along with a young woman by the name of Ebony, who actually was the MC at the Martin Luther King, who I also love. She went with us last year. So, I mean, that's an example of what we're talking about, just the church community working together to respond to Christ's call on our lives.
Now, family life. Here on Hilton Head. I mean, I tell you what, you couldn't pick a better setting to actually raise a family. I've been, I've lived around the country, traveled around the world, so to speak, not the whole world, but, to a greater part of it. And I tell you, there's no more special place than Hilton Head to raise a family. The setting is just perfect. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, that's where I would like to start, the family life of Greg Kronz, because I have the pleasure of knowing your boys and of course, working at the yacht club for a short period of time, which you're a member of, and going to play volleyball for a short period of time. You have a special family, and of course that's because you're a special person.
Oh, thank you.
But let's start at that, and we'll work from there.
Sounds great.
This has been the first part of Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. Of course, my name is Earl Yates, and I have the pleasure of having Greg Kronz on. We're going to take a short break and come right back, and you can continue to learn. Okay? See you shortly. Welcome back to Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates. I'm your host. And once again, my guest is Greg Kronz. Greg is the rector at St. Luke's. Greg, when we left off on the last show, we decided that we're going to start with the family life of Rector Greg Kronz, which, I should just say Greg Kronz.
That'd be
more than
best.
anything else. That's what you prefer, so that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I have a wonderful wife, and the neat thing about Meredith being my wife, and we still love each other, which is really great. It really helps. Is that we met doing ministry together. We worked together as volunteers in Young Life. So we've never known each other apart from ministry. So she knows that's my life. And so she's always been a partner in that, as opposed to frustrated or angry with me because I'm not home as much as maybe other husbands. And I have 3 children. Bethany is 25, just moved to Pittsburgh, where she was born, interestingly enough. She left when she was just about 2. And she moved back there for a variety of reasons. She's now living with Meredith's sister and trying to find a job. And she went to Belmont University in Nashville, majored in music, tried to break into the music world there and wasn't very successful. And so she's moving to Pittsburgh, where she thinks she'll have more opportunity. And her real love with music anyway is writing. She writes music, and I love to listen to her music. She used to actually have a CD on the island that she did when she was about 13 or 14 that used to be at Barnes & Noble, and we used to sell at the church, and then we ran out. And so I'm looking forward to her doing that again someday, because that was a gift to her mother and the grandparents that I worked with her on. It was a real pleasure. Son Daniel just got married May 28th, graduate from the...
Congratulations.
Thank you. Graduate of the Citadel. And we absolutely adore his wife, Natalie. She's just a doll. And they're now at Fort Benning. He's in Ranger School, so even though they've been married a little over a month, they're now separated for 61 days as he's in Ranger School. He's a second lieutenant infantry officer and will eventually end up at Fort Drum in the 10th Mountain up in upstate New York. And my youngest is Aaron. Aaron is the easiest one. He is one of the most joyful, peaceful guys I know. And saying that about your own son is interesting. But we sit out a lot of evenings and just chat for 20 minutes, half an hour. And he's a great guy. He's at the University of South Carolina majoring in math and statistics. His goal is to make money. I got a musician and an Army guy and someone who wants to make money, and it's like parental whiplash is what it is, But they're all great. They're all walking with the Lord, and they are, outside of the Lord and Meredith, the greatest joy of my life. I just love them. And you know them from the boys, especially from the yacht club and from volleyball. Yeah.
Well, one subject that I'll go back to since you've spoken about Meredith, is the relationship, the husband and wife. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that men face in our world now. Mm-hmm. Since women, and I tell you, it comes from both sides from what I've seen. Of course, because women have equal rights now, and they're fighting for their independence just as much as men are, it sort of gives a little bend to the relationship, because now people feel that as if there is no determination to make the relationship work. Now, if almost like the first sign you see of any strife, or maybe that person doesn't have the exact qualities what I was looking for, there's a huge split. What I found in my relationship with my wife is it's a must that you remain stronger in a relationship than you are as an individual, which most people find extremely hard. Mm-hmm. As a pastor and as a great husband, how do you give direction for that?
Well, for one thing, I love doing premarital counseling, and that's where I try to lay a foundation for young couples. And basically what I talk about is it's your commitment to the Lord first that's going to carry you, because believe it or not, you won't always feel loved. When couples come into your office to get married, they love each other. And I say to them, you're not in here because you think you have a 50-50 shot of your marriage working. And yet that's the statistics in the United States right now, basically. And I said, you're here because you love each other. But you need to understand what love is really all about. And it's about Christ and his love in you. You have to remember that it's His love that carries you when you don't feel in love, when you're not happy, which is what so many people want to feel in our United States today. They want to feel in love and they want to feel happy, and it's not always that way. Sometimes it's work. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's painful, because everybody goes through difficult times. So it's about His love in you. Secondly, it's about commitment, because it's not just about my feelings right now. It's about commitment when those feelings may disappear. And it's hard for young couples to envision that. And yet, commitment is really, really critical to understand the nature of commitment. And thirdly, communication. You got to spend time in communication. You got to spend time talking on a regular basis, connecting. And Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so we're four-dimensional. So we need to connect with our spouse on all of those levels. We need to spend time together physically, emotionally connect with each other, share what's going on in our lives with each other, the intellectual news, and spiritually praying, worshiping together, connecting to each other on all levels on a regular basis. And that's what makes a marriage strong, because there are assaults. Think about what so many people are living for today. Personal happiness, personal pleasure, fulfilling desires, success, having things. And if you look at the commercials, that's what a lot is being sold on commercials, not necessarily the product per se. And those oftentimes drive you away from your marriage. And so you have to remain strong if you really understand what marriage is all about in the face of those temptations and desires.
Well, I think it's an amazing thing that you would mention commitment as a third part. I mean, for me growing up, it was also a soul thing that it was a must that you communicated more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And to find out later in life, which you said communication is a strong bond. But before communication, you must have your dedication to the Lord. Absolutely. And then your dedication to the relationship.
Exactly.
Because so many people, once you come across the little things in life, because I think it's hardest in America. Maybe I'm biased because I live here, but it's hardest in America because we do have access to absolutely everything you want if you have the drive for it. Right. So what that means is if your main desire is money, is finance, and you work hard enough, dedicated to just that, you will have it. So, and then we search for so much personal success in life that when someone else is involved, you sort of lose that togetherness because, okay, yeah, it looks like you're finding yours, but I'm not finding mine. Mm-hmm. And so it's so easy. Life now has become to where divorce is just a part of it, which is a sad thing. Yeah. And the dedication you speak about is so amazing because that's what life comes to. What do you dedicate yourself to? And I believe when I'm finished, with living here on earth, just like I would think most people, that's the last question you ask yourself. What was I dedicated to, and was it the right thing? Yeah. And for someone to have Greg Kronz in their life, because that is your belief in that system, is a very special thing. For your congregation, how much emphasis do you put on family life in general?
Very much. I mean, your commitment to the Lord comes first. In fact, the way that I've actually talked to my children about that the way the Lord works in our lives, that loving my wife comes out of loving the Lord. So it's an overflow. Then loving my children comes out of loving my wife. It's an overflow. And then loving my children, they will in turn love other people. It's an overflow. So when you have that essential feeding, nurturing, the spring of life, as Jesus calls it, the Holy Spirit, that flows into you towards your wife, and then the two of you towards your children, then you naturally bless other people. If there's family strife, it's almost the exact opposite. And so the reality is, keeping your marriage strong, your family strong, you're going to end up being a blessing to other people. And that's the way it works best.
Well, I tell you, Greg, it's been an amazing thing. I mean, I said before we started rolling the camera that this was going to be one of the more special shows, if not the most special show that I've ever done. And it turns out, for me, it was the most, I would say, conversational based, truly conversational based, because, it's something I wanted to learn. And speaking to you has been something that I've been wanting to do for a great period of time, and for our guests to actually get the experience of hearing that. I hope I know it can't be as special to them as it is to me, because it's something I want to continue doing. And
well, let me say something too. This guy's great. Because as soon as he said, I want to talk to you, I said, great, because we've seen each other in other settings, and he's just a great guy too. So thank you, Earl.
Great, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure. I would, hopefully it becomes one of those things that happen on a regular basis.
Be great.
Thankfully, like I mentioned earlier, I have Michael Zanacco, which, is a very special guy, and I'm pretty sure a lot of your words I hear through him, so it's a good thing.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're not on a spiritual level in your life, I hope someone as, the best word I can use, simple, as Greg Kronz, because that's the way he makes life. He pretty much brings it in a very simple way. It's how I've thought from the beginning, and what I see even more now, because life comes, the greatest parts of it, in its simplicities. So hopefully you've learned a whole lot, and you've been inspired to, if you don't have a place to where you're finding your spiritual well-being, St. Luke's, this is where this man is. Hopefully you visit it often. It's been a pleasure. My name is Earl Yates, Greg Kronz. This is Lowcountry View. Have a good night.